Anyways, why don't we pause the music here and turn the browser audio up and watch a fun little video finding out why are the Englishmen so damn stylish? Because we're Englishmen, it's what we do, but let's look at the long answer.
The reason the sun doesn't set on the British Empire is that God doesn't trust an Englishman in the dark. So years ago, back when I was a lieutenant stationed over in Virginia with the United States Marine Corps, we had an exchange officer from the UK spending time with our unit. Now, as the Marine Corps was founded in a bar, we make it a custom to take our friends out drinking. Seriously, the Brits had a reputation. We wanted to see if we could drink him under the table. Well, not only did he outdrink all of us, but he managed to pick up the hottest girl in the bar. Now, if that only happened
goddamn
once,
right he
I would
did.
attribute it to luck. But gents, over the next 5 months, we went to Georgetown 5 more times, and every single time, this dude was pulling tail like no other. He had a friggin' smooth accent that made him sound like James Bond.
The name's Bond.
James Bond.
Looking like a friggin' aristocrat that, yeah, we made fun of him on the first time we went out, but by the end of our 6-month school, we were taking notes on the way this guy presented himself. So all this begs the question, why are the English so damn stylish? Are they taught how to dress? Do they have access to better clothing? Are they just bred better? Well, I guess it depends on who you talk to. But before I get into that, let's take a trip back to 1485, at the beginning of the Tudor era. So it was at this time, under the rule of King Henry VIII and Elizabeth I, that we saw England start to distinguish itself from the rest of the world with its own unique styles. The opulence of the royal courts at this time
accent, I
set
bet.
the tone for the entire
Something
country.
to do with it.
In fact, one particular item known as the ruff, which was an overly large starched collar that actually, depending on the size, depending on the detail, these things were not only incredibly expensive. Well, these collars, these status symbols started.
You see this, and it's like I almost hear Baroque music playing. You know, I hear works of Bach and Handel and you know, all these other sort of Baroque type composers, just their works playing.
To appear, and all of a sudden the race was on to symbolize where in the class structure you stood. Other items like the doublet were worn by men to emphasize their masculinity. Over the doublet, men would wear a jerkin. Now this was really important because it was an outer piece that was lined with fur, and the detail that went into it would often highlight the status of the individual. And of course, who can forget the codpiece? Now I know some of you guys are thinking, wow, I wish this would make a comeback.
Doggo.
I mean, especially if you're well endowed, you might as well show the world what you're packing. Seriously, who is riding into battle with a full-on hard-on that needs to be protected? Now the Stuart period, starting in 1603, would mark the resistance of English style to the influence
I
of
don't
the
know, maybe
French.
they're turned on
Items
by
like
that
the
sort of
Cavalier
thing.
hat, which, as many of you guys know, derived their name from Charles I, were noted for wearing their extravagant clothing. Other key style items that emerged during this period were both the buff coat and the frock coat. Now the buff coat was really functional. This was a leather jacket primarily worn by the military but picked up by civilians as well. And the buff coat is remembered by clothing historians as an example of English practicality. But it's the frock coat that has actually survived still to this day, as this long loose coat, which started to become popular at the end of the Stuart period, would eventually evolve into a key element of gentleman's attire. Now
Yeah, he's probably going to talk about this anyway, but that sort of long coat would eventually serve as the basis for the English morning suit, and for formal apparel like black tie and tails, white tie and tails, and then somewhere along the line gets picked up as military wear, and then the military wear gets adapted into civilian wear once more, and we get the modern day 2- and 3-piece suit.
Georgian era, starting in 1714, would see a further refinement of English style. It was during this time period that we saw the emergence of the greatcoat. A large, heavy overcoat, it was designed for warmth and protection against the elements. Breeches, basically knee-high trousers, became popular during this period, and they immediately became associated with those in higher class levels. And funny enough, here in the United States, when we think of breeches, when we see these type of trousers, we think of our founding fathers, the people that created this country. Now, the reality is men have been wearing...
Yeah, I think a lot of the American founders wore breeches, and the breech would serve as the base for the creation of the modern trouser. Um, you still see them to a certain extent with riding wear, people who go riding horses, and it's yeah, so more traditional type of English riding gear. Look at this little Historian buff, cute. I do love me some history.
Forms of neckwear for thousands of years. But the cravat was a bit different. Made with linen or muslin, it was tied with elaborate knots and was really more for design and look and color than it was for the functional purpose of keeping the neck warm. And of course, let's not forget the wig. This was the time period in which they were all the rave. And again, when you wore a wig, this was a sign of social status. It was a sign of power. It was a way for a man to be able to move through society and those that were, in his opinion, beneath him to get out of his way. Now, gents, as I'm talking about this, I realize how arrogant and how, unfair some of this stuff can sound. But it's history, it's human nature, and my goal on this channel is to help you understand the power that style still has even today. Now,
yeah, I mean, it's history. Just, study it, understand it, and get over it. Stop getting so pissed off at things that already happened that no one can take back. Let's just learn from it and get over it. My military knowledge is bouncing off of breaches wrong. Oh, history bores you. Well, I mean, you know what they say about those who forget history.
Regency period was brief. We're talking less than 10 years. But this time period is important to highlight because this was the emergence of the uniform that would go on to mark the sign of the British Empire for the next 200 years.
Exactly, doomed to repeat it.
What I'm talking about here is the suit. Now, the suit was heavily influenced by a single individual, and that individual is Beau Brummel. When it came to style, Beau emphasized simplicity, cleanliness, and tailored fit in a time period when that wasn't the norm. But because of his positions in society, he had a huge impact on its perception, and he is credited with revolutionizing men's fashion in England and beyond. Now, specifically in this time period, we saw the emergence of the tailcoat. Now, the tailcoat descends from the frock coat. It's a lighter version, and obviously the distinctive feature here is the tail in the back. It was also cut in a way that the jacket was structured. It flattered the wearer's waist, and it emphasized broader shoulders. We also saw the emergence of pantaloons, an early form of trousers, as if these extended to the ankles and they were often worn with boots. And the waistcoat emerged in this period, worn under a tailcoat, because yes, you could go with a dull color, but at this time period, we also saw men starting to experiment with brighter colors and patterns that brought contrast to their outfits. Now, the Victorian era, starting in 1837, in which most historians say that British men's style solidified itself around the globe. The key items to come out of this time period were the morning coat. It had a cutaway front, and it became the standard for daytime wear. The three-piece suit, a suit, as many of you guys know, jacket, trouser, made from the same material, but a three-piece has the vest. What I want to bring your attention is it's still around today, and that's what I love about men's style.
Indeed it
because
is.
you can buy a classic, timeless piece, and you can know, hey, if it's been around for over 100 years, there's a good chance the piece I'm going to buy will be around for another 100 years. That allows you to spend a little bit more money to get a quality piece, knowing that this is not going to go out of fashion. And of course, let's not forget about hats. The classic bowler.
And see, that has always been my personal rule, and also my suggestion to others is don't go for what are ultimately going to be fleeting trends. Go for the timeless looks. Buy whatever is timeless and might be worth spending a little extra for quality. Because you know it'll last for years and years. And if it's made well enough, it could even be an heirloom piece. I might have a ballistic vest. Is that a good one? Love BDUs too. Those are comfy for us ladies to wear. The ballistic vest is definitely too bulky though. An interesting choice, but hey, whatever works.
Bowler hat and top hat both appeared in this time period. Now, the top hat was more geared towards the upper class individuals, the bowler hat more for the middle class, and even today, the style of...
Yes, so in in British society, you would see top hats probably worn by, well, you would probably see them worn by uh, men who are members of the House of Lords, while the bowler hat would be worn by House of Commons and especially by the civil service. It's almost standard part of the uniform with the civil service back then was the bowler hat. I know I have BDUs somewhere. I mean, you're set in the event of a zombie apocalypse, right?
That hat we still see out there, and if you ever see it, you're always thinking, yes, very typical English style. Now, if you're looking to level up your style, you really need to check out my free community over on Skool. I've set this community up so we've got free classes that you can make your way through step by step and learn the basic foundations of men's style. We actually have giveaways. In fact, this year alone, I've given away over $15,000 in gear that has accumulated here in my office, and I love sending it out to you guys free of charge. And I have to say, the men that are in this group are friggin' awesome. We've got a no a-hole policy. People treat each other with respect. And what we've managed to create in this community is a place where a man can come in and ask questions and get some solid advice. So gents, use the link in the description of today's video. Go check out our free communities on Skool. These are for you to become the man you know yourself to be. Now, the Edwardian era would start in 1901 and would continue what we saw in the Victorian era with the emergence of the Norfolk jacket, the Homburg hat, and the lounge suit. After that, we saw the interwar period, where we see the emergence of the trench coat, Oxford bags, and Argyle sweaters. Again, Argyle sweaters, we still see them around today, and the trench coat is still a...
Both are still incredibly smart-looking items. The Argyle sweater, and especially the trench coat. Trench coat layered on top of like a 2 or 3 piece suit. I mean, that is usually enough to be warm enough on fairly cool fall and winter days. More bitterly cold winter's days, you may want to start looking at like an overcoat or maybe a thick pea coat or something like that. Still have my Class A's Army greens. Love the marine blues on a man too. It's like a huge weakness, but I know you men love when women just wear the BDU jacket. At least you didn't say Navy or Chair Force. I feel like Rex looks sharp IRL. At the very least, I'll look like I'm about ready to go to the golf course. Though in my part of the country, it tends to be a bit too hot this time of year for a full-on suit and tie. So tend to keep it rather Oxford, Oxbridge, New England prep style, but with very breathable and bright fabrics. A woman in an oversized shirt, hoodie, coat with unknown other clothing is appealing. Yes, because we start to wonder, what is she wearing underneath, if anything? Suits are a weakness of mine too. Honestly, just the tie could get me. Oh dear. I may have to show off my my tie collection because it is rather expensive. And that's a little secret of men's wardrobes, is that the rotation of suits and shirts, and especially different types of ties, you could have a very limited number of suits and just a few more shirts than that, but it's the tie that will keep your wardrobe looking fresh, like you've got more clothes than you actually do. Should probably snap a pic of my dress uniform. Hey, let's go. So basically has non-fun times only, fun time ties only. No, I've got a couple of fun ties. I picked up one in Tokyo. I think it was 2019 when I got it. It's a Godzilla tie. So, you know, that like the stripe ties, the rep stripe ties, it's this sort of crimson red type tie, and it's instead of a standard stripe, it's a skyline, and there's a little embroidered Godzilla. Looks like it's attacking Tokyo on each stripe. Time to go, still at work. Ah, have fun, Phalanx, or, you know, as fun as you can. Don't work too hard. See, he doesn't even know what I mean. I mean, I do have, like, some of my best ties come from Brooks Brothers and Benson and Clegg. I've got, you know, some. The more ornate ones are like embroidered rampant lions on them. Oh dear, fun time ties like to, tie a woman's hands up. Oh, those, well, I suppose they could be used for that. They are made of fairly sturdy silk. You're so innocent. Am I? I just normally don't need to restrain someone that way, and usually I'm able to just sort of talk my way out of it.
A classic piece of menswear, very useful if you live in a place like Seattle, although we don't see it sold as much because a lot of men, well, they're traveling in vehicles and they want something shorter, which, by the way, you can still go with a shorter trench coat. Post World War II, we see items like the mod suit, which is basically a suit with a slim fit, narrow lapels, which became the uniform of the subculture. We see the Chelsea boots, made popular by the Beatles when they took the world in the 1960s.
Those are still so incredibly comfortable. King Panzer, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. If it's your first time here, I'm Lord Rexworth. I'm an English nobleman VTuber, and we are examining the age-old question, why are Englishmen so damn stylish? We're doing some video reacts. Hang on, I'll get you a shout-out. There we go. Let's see what you're up to. Ah, playing Call to Arms, Gates of Hell, Ostfront. How was that? How did that go? I hope it was a good stream. But yeah, if you need to get up and stretch, grab something to eat, something to drink, you know, totally understand if you need a raid and run, but do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much. Hope you're having a great day. It was pretty good, no losses. Hey, let's go. GG's all around.
In their mod suits, with their mop top haircuts, and their Chelsea boots. Now, some of you guys are going to say, well, wait a minute, Chelsea boots, don't those go back to Queen Victoria? Shouldn't those have been in an earlier period? Yes, a lot of these items I'm talking about, like the trench coat, actually have been around for 50 years before it was pushed out, but it does take time. And that's one of the reasons English style, I think, has had such an impact, is these items had a growth period in which the designers, in which the craftsmen actually were able to take the item that had worked 50 years before, and then whenever the timing was right, be able to share it with the entire world. Which now takes us to the meat of this video, which is why
Age
are
like
the
fine
English
wine.
so damn stylish? Because yeah, they got history, but that doesn't explain why so many countries, so many style icons have been influenced by this particular country. Well, the first reason, and an uncomfortable one for many people, is that the English push their style on others through conquest. You can't help but learn our history and see how we were heavily influenced by the English. The styles of our founding fathers were all taken from England. English influence over in India. You guys were under the English yoke a little bit longer. Many of you guys over there know the stories of how anyone from one of the English colonies, whether it was Australia, South Africa, if you were going to engage with the English, you needed to, in many ways, dress like the English. But of course, as Gandhi found out on that train in South Africa when he got thrown off, despite looking English, there's a lot more that goes to it. Now, the next reason a lot of English style has infiltrated the
I mean, yeah. There's always the good points and bad points to Empire, but I don't know. I should like to think that the influence and the impact of the British Empire on the world has been a net positive. Ah, this guy. See some of this guy's vids, they're decent. Yeah, real men, real style. Yeah, he's pretty good. I like him.
world is it frickin' works. It's practical. I know it's not typically English, but let's take the Aran sweater. Yes, it's Irish, but you look at the way that sweater was designed, the way it's knitted, the material it's made from. This is a sweater that's made for cold, wet areas.
I think my dad had a sweater like this for a long time. He must have held on to it for a good 20, 30 years. And yeah, it's stylish. Even today, classic design. I'll be lurking mostly, little one's up from the nap. Alright then, that's fine. I'm going to put browser audio up here just to move the Discord audio down here on OBS. Alright.
And for those reasons, a lot of English clothing makes sense in other parts of the world where they don't have as long of a history or maybe as developed of a clothing industry. And so they would just take pieces, fabrics, like Donegal tweed. It's going to work over in the Northwest United States because it worked for hundreds of years in a similar climate over in Ireland. Tweed. Now, the next reason we see the influence of English style around the world is because...
My phone will be in hand, though, so don't say nothing you wouldn't want me to hear. Ah. Understood.
Because England was pretty good about kicking people out of its country and sending them to live in other places. Again, the United States being the example I know best, but I know a lot of you guys are down in Australia, down in South Africa. Maybe you can talk to this, but here in the United States, if you are of Scottish descent, if you're of Welsh descent, if you're Irish, when these guys came over first generation, they brought over their patterns, they brought over their fabrics. Now the Scots didn't get us on board with the kilts, but I do know a number of Scottish men that live here that are like third or fourth generations that still wear their kilts around. But my point here is the fabrics. They had a lot of...
I will say this, even though I have a Scottish family name, I don't wear a kilt. I don't wear a kilt. So, however, I do have wool neckties of my family's tartan. And that I do wear. Also have a matching pocket square. So maybe that's more of the English in me talking. I keep the Allied forces at bay. What's that? Oh, you mean a pocket square? Pocket square is another name for something like a handkerchief. Pocket squares, though, are typically made of, like, mostly silk, sometimes wool. No, a tartan. Oh, a tartan is a certain pattern of fabric that there are different distinctive designs for each Scottish clan. And so, you know, if you have a last name that is Scottish, or if you're a member of a Scottish clan by birth or by relations or something like that, then each clan has its own unique tartan. It's sort of like it's a certain pattern of fabric with very specific colors. And there's a multitude of different tartans out there, depending on the Scottish clan. And that's one of the ways that the Scottish sort of recognize each other is through their family tartans. And sometimes they have variations on it. Sometimes the design will have evolved um, throughout the centuries to be slightly different. Um, there's even some clans that have um, standard ceremonial tartans, and then they've also got hunting tartans. The hunting tartans are designed to have colors in them that don't really draw so much attention, but are still distinctive. Never seen those. It's probably worth a Google search for Scottish clan tartans. And it's actually spelled Tartan. Beautiful, beautiful designs, all of them. And there's usually some manufacturers out there or craftsmen who are able to make decorative family crests made out of fine quality wood, and it'll have a background of the clan tartan, and then the family crest on top of that. I've got one that actually hangs over my desk here, and occasionally just it's worth it to look up there and see the old family motto, and yeah. Anyway, it's a Scottish thing.
Symbolism in these with particular families, with particular patterns, and these traditions were exported to other places. An example that flies under most people's radar, neckties. So in case you didn't know, after the cravat, the necktie started to become more popular, especially in the last 150 years. And the first neckties over in England, they all had a significant meaning. In fact, you could only wear certain regimental stripes or club ties if you had actually been a member of a certain club, or had gone to a certain school, or had served in a particular military unit. And by the way, if you ever want to know the difference between an English or an American regimental tie,
Yes, this is important. Regimental or rep ties, they've got different directions that the stripes go.
just simply look at the direction in which the line goes. Nowadays, you're lucky if you can find a guy that actually knows how to tie a tie, but seriously, it is still a skill that I highly recommend. Now, the next reason the English style
Yes, lads, please learn how to tie a tie. Learn how to tie a tie. Learn how to tie a tie. Learn the standard Windsor knot. If you learn nothing else, learn that. You need to know how to tie a tie. I know how to tie a tie. Well, good. But at least learn how to tie a standard necktie. There's not really much of a need to learn how to tie a bow tie, but if you can tie your own bow tie, that's actually rather impressive. That one requires a bit more finesse and skill. But once you practice enough with a standard necktie, it actually becomes second nature. I wear one. Good, good. They're so adorable. Shut up. What, bow ties? I mean, yeah, look all right. Do you get them in different colors or just solid? I have a few solid uh, neckties. The thing is, the key to remember with solid neckties is it needs to have some sort of texture to it. Normally, I would say, if money were no object, I would suggest to somebody who is building a tie collection. I meant bow ties. Oh, the few that I do have, I think I've got one or two that are just like navy with a very thin red stripe. That's one of them. I don't know. I don't have too many. I don't have too many bow ties. I mean, I've got a bow tie, like a satin bow tie, to go with my tuxedo. But yeah, I go in more for regular neckties than anything else. I think they're so cute if you can pull them off with your facial shave. Yeah, I suppose so. I wish they brought back the tie pin from the 1920s. I like those. Yeah, that I think you're talking about the one that normally you would place near near the knot itself, which is yeah, those have sort of gone out of practice, haven't they? But then again, there's opportunity for you if you ever go antiquing or something like that. Go on the hunt for antique tie pins. Yeah, check out the flea markets too. It's you'd be amazed what you'll find. Hmm. But yeah, that yeah, the old tie pins and the old tie bars that you put on the collar. Hmm. Excuse me for just a moment, chat. Yeah, we lost some many cool stuff. Yeah, it's unfortunate. By the way, sorry, chat. I had to sneeze and blow my nose there. Yeah, either's good, but the bow tie is just nerdy adorable in my opinion. Yeah, I think I've got. No, I take that back. I did have one solid color bow tie. It was sort of like a faux grenadine weave type fabric, and it was like this maroon or like a Bordeaux red. Tended to go rather well with blue dress shirts. So yeah, that was nice. It was it was a clip-on tie of sorts, but yeah, it was nice. I think I've still got it somewhere. And I think I've still got the navy blue one with the red stripes on the edge. Very very British, if I do say so. But yes, we did lose many cool things throughout that have been lost to time, unfortunately, and especially in terms of style. You don't see a lot of men wearing suits anymore, unfortunately. A lot of young people have no idea how to tie a necktie, let alone a bow tie, and that's rather sad. Women's fashion too has, I think, suffered. I think the peak of women's fashion probably was in the 50s and 60s, and then it was all just sort of downhill from there, which is unfortunate. Cough, cough. What are you coughing for? I would never. Would never what?
An oversized influence on the world is purely economic. Up till the 1930s, England was a hub for clothing manufacturing around the world. When it came to the ability to make specialized fabrics, and thanks to India with imports of incredibly cheap cotton and cluster.
Yeah. Benefit of having India as your colony, cheap textiles. I have one dress from that time style, and it is uncomfortable. Women can't have chests or rears in those dresses. Well, perhaps so. But thankfully, we are starting to see clothing brands, or I guess clothing manufacturers, none of it's none of the name brands, but a lot of rather niche and boutique brands starting to make neo-retro and neo-vintage style outfits. So they're not authentically vintage, but they are of that style, upgraded with modern fabrics, modern techniques, and modern fittings as well. And a lot of them, if you look around, they are surprisingly affordable. Yeah, but it's still designed to appear flat-chested. I don't know about that. There's a lot of neo-vintage style is, especially in women's clothing, you're starting to see more of that designed to sort of accentuate curves and to accentuate the assets and features of a woman's body, as it were. I'll look for you. All right. Anyways, let's move on.
Clusters of skilled artisans that had for centuries had information passed to them on how to manufacture shoes, clothing, and all the hardware, all the intricacies that went into things like that. In particular, London was the hub if you wanted to understand fashion design or if you were looking at mercantile fabric trading. When it came to fashion, as in many other industries, England had their fingers all over the place. Now, of course, the Great War from 1914 to 1918 saw a huge shift in production, and it all wrapped up during World War II, and England's position has never been the same since the post-war. That being said, we did see a change in technology that allowed...
Honestly, the end of the war left Britain as just a broken empire and a broken nation. The Americans, I think, used that opportunity to just do an end run around them and take control. And we went from the age of the British Empire to now the American Empire. And yeah, as much as there was a lot of great contributions from the British, even after the war, it was still noticeably a nation and empire in decline, and a sort of managed decline as well.
England to still have an oversized impact on fashion. And the first example of this was the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. What was unique about this coronation? It was televised. In fact, it was one of the first major broadcasts that was shown worldwide. And what did people focus in on? What did they want to emulate? The styles. And since then, over the last 50 years, it has been Hollywood that has brought English style to our living rooms and our theaters. I know so many of you guys that are into men's style. We love Cary Grant. And yes, he spends a lot of time over here in many of our movies, but he's actually English. Yeah. Now, gents, if you like this video, you're going to love this one right here. Why are Italian men so stylish? Seriously, why are the Italians so stylish? Guys, check out this video.
Because they're Italians, that's why.
Love this one. Boom.
It's practically in their DNA.
Come on.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for future videos, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. You can also follow me on Twitter @LordRexworth for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. And if you want to support the channel, check out my Ko-fi or Throne pages. Links are in the description. Finally, be sure to visit LordRexworth.com and follow me across all platforms. That's LordRexworth.com. Until next time, I wish you all the best, and God bless.